Hello, I'm Philip Stoten. I am at Electronica 2024 on the final day. I'm joined by Richard from Supplyframe. Richard, thanks so much for joining me.
Great to be here.
Like me, you must be exhausted.
I am, but it's been an exciting, action-packed, few days. We've had, incredible engagement across EMS, our key OEM customers, our whole media, e-commerce network, all the distributors. So it really is interesting to see everything come together in one place.
And it's back, baby. Electronica really feels like it back. The city is packed. It's really hard to get a hotel room.
Yeah, I think we were so uncertain 2 years ago, just coming out of COVID, what was it going to be like? And I thought one of the things we saw was there was a real desire and hunger to get back in person to really engage. This year, we're also seeing more international participation. It seems that there's a general sense of new energy, optimism on a global scale. Even though the DACH region locally feels incredibly depressing. It's like this kind of tale of two cities in some ways.
No, it's curious, and I understand what's going on in the market. We've had a lot of uncertainty around politics. We've had high interest rates, but we've also had this very painful inventory bubble working its way through.
Working its way through,
And much as the EMS guys have done a great job of reducing their inventory, their customers now have it. So orders have declined. I think a lot of people have talked about uptick the back end of this year. Now they're talking about the back end of next year, which I think the middle of next year back end is more realistic. I think we've got that political uncertainty out of the way, which is good news.
In a lot of ways,
we're seeing a little bit more of a protectionist vibe as a result of that, but I think that was inevitable, whichever party got
I agree.
So what are you seeing when you talk to EMS guys? What are they looking to you for? What are they looking for you to solve?
Well, I think from a market perspective, there is this shift, like you talked about, around the inventory rebalance. And like you said, most of the larger EMSs that we worked with and some of the smaller ones got ahead of the inventory liability negotiation. I think now what's now up to bat is a healthy tension on new customer program discussions. So what we're seeing with our EMS leaders across the board is trying to find a way to proactively review those customer programs, identify potential risks, lean in on the conversation on value-added design, make recommendations for alternates based on many different issues around resilience, around source of origin, all those factors, and work through the identification of where there's going to be strategic inventory, and actually get ahead of the conversation instead of behind it. What we've seen is that speed and agility are the foundation to actual competitive advantage in this market. And it sounds kind of boring at a basic point, but
there's so much more to it.
Right. Well, the physics of speed and response in the market, because of market dynamics and their design cycle changes that are becoming more frequent, more compressed, these new product introductions or ramps to volume. If the response time is more than a week on a significant net change, say on a new program review, we're seeing a lot of our customers struggling with somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks. And solving that end-to-end problem. We've done a lot of optimization around how we buy, sourcing, leveraging long-term agreements, understanding our mix. We've been very responsive and creative around throwing in a lot of value-added services just to go win that new customer program. But the front end and the back end are not tied together. What holds them together oftentimes are spreadsheets just flying around, very complex spreadsheets, with thousands of lines. So what we see is that if you can both increase the speed and agility to insight, to recommendation, to cost assumptions, but more than that, not just get the cost expectations right, but actually identify where there's value add around a negotiated change. That's actually the key to long-term sustainable margin growth improvement. And large and small, we see the performance out there where everyone's getting a little bit better. Some are making some breakthroughs, but we're not where we need to be.
No, there's a lot that needs to be done. And what you were saying about leaning into value, I think, is hugely important. When we look at the crisis we've had, the relationship with the EMS and the supply chain has had a lot of tension in it, and we need to think about that from both sides and understand where each other's value equation lives. We're in this strange world where we're between a consumer and an OEM at one end, and at the other end we've got the chip manufacturers. We're trying to turn on a dime. We're asking you to turn on the dime, and the chip manufacturers do not turn on a dime. They are super tankers that take a little
locked
time
and loaded.
Absolutely locked and loaded. So we blame you for what goes on down here. You blame the EMS industry for what goes on up there. So we need to repair those relationships. But leaning in on value, I think, is one. And
Yeah.
you talked about that. I think that's really important. Leaning in on transparency, digital transformation all through that supply chain is another.
Absolutely.
Is that something you hear? They really want to figure out how we can get demand signals all the way through the supply chain and get supply signals coming back up.
Well, I think there's different really interesting major transformational levers in that whole, let's reduce the bullwhip effect, right? So first of that's reducing demand variability. It's also reducing the response time to any net change in supplier demand. Those are first principles from a supply chain perspective. If you look at this value chain, though, the EMSs are oftentimes not put in a position where they can, like I said, either make recommendations or make adjustments that actually are smoothing or developing more optionality, so you can buffer those changes, and or the inventory liability decisions, right? We got to forward buy because there's a major change in the market, so speed and agility and the ability to have optionality is kind of like a key north star to think through that end to end when you're looking at your processes. But what we're also seeing though is moving to a view where, like you said, on transparency, if some of our largest EMS partners are managing 50, 300, 400 end market programs, in each of those end markets, there's a different type of problem and challenge with forecast variability. Trusting in automotive, it's been that, they're pretty accurate on a 6 to 8 week schedule, horribly inaccurate on their forecast vehicle volumes. Their sort of outlook for 6 months to 18 months, and then that just keeps rippling through. And so there's right now, and particularly because of that uncertainty, there's a sense of almost being frozen. It's not having a read. So what do you do in that situation? Number one is, if you can get passed through on long-term agreements that the OEMs are managing, but you're having that visibility and you're actually orchestrating any net change on forecast demand as you're pulling that through, linking long-term contract structures that are flex agreements, long-term agreements, combined with short-term just-in-time sourcing events on the mix of everything that's being actively managed, as well as then looking at, how do we have transparency on the net change? One of the things that we're doing is taking our CPQ, or configure price quote solution, that's been used by multiple distributors, component suppliers, et cetera, and digitally enabling that to, for example, be the intelligent front end of supplier portal for an EMS, where you can isolate the end customer demand and you can have those predefined agreements already in place. So you get instant responses on updates to cost, lead time, et cetera. For say 80% of your spending, you're only focusing on managing a highly negotiated 20% spend. If you get that digital pass through, the compression in cycle time is just dramatic, and you get more intelligent and reliable, and you reduce a lot of non-value added stuff. I mean, we have these philosophical conversations with Jabil, because we announced this major initiative to work with their key tier 1 distributors and look at their component supply base. And one of their kind of philosophical questions is, what is a quote? Is it actually serving its purpose? Do we even need to do this? Why are we sending thousands of lines and updates on that change, even though it might be double bookings from a distributor and an EMS? It might be just validation checks, but if forest for the trees, if you can't isolate what's the really strategic need, or what's the area of major value creation, if you're a supplier to an EMS and you don't have visibility to the OEM customer, you're never going to get an optimal answer. So if we can just reduce a lot of that waste in that process, make it more intelligent, and expand the scope of the intelligence. So the other thing that we're seeing is, let's get out of just thinking narrowly around a cost, transaction, lead time conversation. Let's look at recommended alternatives. Let's look around, an update to life cycle lead time or allocations, at a product class family from the supplier. So that's visible and kind of always being updated. And then let's share those insights that we have, predictive insights, with the OEM customers. So you're setting conversations around, you're saying you're going to grow 38%. I'm seeing the market overall, demand go down 10% or not even hit that. I'm seeing this is where our biggest strategic commodity risks are. But there's some price movement opportunities. Hey, let's align on what your committed volumes are for the next 6 months, so we can ride that wave together. You know what I mean, and release the margin. That's where because the game of purchase price variance, locking, squeeze play on the EMSs. I mean, this is when the industry was first getting started, right? And you could understand
this is a 90s strategy.
2025, folks, is where we are. Have we moved an inch on this mindset? It's unfair. But a lot of it is an internal transformation, thinking of an EMS saying, when I'm doing special services for inventory programs, et cetera, it's not non-recurring engineering.
Yeah.
It's a services line. I
Yeah.
have expertise in value add. It's trying to reset the expectation with those key customers. And it's not easy. I mean, because everyone's been trained, this is the game we play.
Yeah.
But I see breakthroughs. I see an openness to actually shift the conversation to value add. And that, I think, is critical for everybody. It's not just one EMS doing it smarter, a little bit better, getting the 0.6% margin relief. No, everyone benefits from that shift in thinking.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that openness and that honesty in the supply chain, also the openness and honesty in terms of where value is added throughout the value chain. That's essential. And I think you being able to communicate where you add the most value is important. A show like this is very important to do it, but other communication channels are important. Everybody wants to see digital transformation. Everybody's talking about applying AI to it. I was talking to an AI expert the other day, and they were talking about the way AI is used in fast fashion.
Yeah.
And that supply chain is
absolutely
bang, it turns on a dime.
Yeah.
They're not making semiconductors that take 22 weeks. They're just buying rolls of fabric. So it's very different.
Yeah.
But we can learn from how they recognize demand signals in the marketplace and do different things. So
absolutely.
I think there are interesting areas there, and I think the use of AI is perhaps, even if it's not a big game changer, it's part of what will take us the next step of 100%. That transformation journey.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think we're at kind of peak AI awareness, and I've seen this in kind of the broader supply chain market and electronics industry broadly. It's a bit frustrating for me because if you've been around the block long enough, you sort of understand where you have these sort of hype cycles.
Yeah.
And I came out of supply chain planning, optimization, genetic algorithms, simulated annealing. I mean, we had PhDs building these algorithms. They weren't just in a class library that you can now download for free, right? Yeah. But when we talk about AI, we're talking about generative AI, we're talking about use cases for large language models, or we're talking about just simply multiple applied AI methods that are purpose-built for solving a specific problem. Okay, great. Yeah. The stuff that feels peak consumer awareness is the consumer experiences. I just got married in Spain 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My wife is Hungarian, and we're bringing the families together for the first time. And her brothers and her mom and dad don't speak English.
Right.
And I had met her dad, and we had done Google Translate the year before, and it was awful. He's a talker, I'm a talker. Paragraphs go by, right? We're barely, it's all broken. It doesn't, my wife is on, no, that translation's awful. Yeah. We get everyone together for 3 days, 3 a.m, everyone's on the phone, just laughing, going back and forth. And my wedding literally couldn't have happened if it wasn't for that ChatGPT. So I deeply am grateful for this crazy world that we're in right now. But when I look at it from a business transformation process perspective, I think what's interesting is it's a bit of a catalyst and shift in thinking of, we can do short, quick projects focused on a specific kind of, let's change the customer experience. Let's do some new data analytics. Let's train a model maybe in a narrow way that's solving a very specific pattern we haven't been able to figure out. And then that's actually linking to a mindset of change and innovation that says, oh, well, wait a minute. If we can do that in that area, let's look at the entire kind of what I call, Siemens calls the digital thread end to end. Let's get out of spreadsheets, because you can't use these AI models, train them, et cetera, if everyone's got their isolated bits of data, spread around. So I'm seeing, what we're providing is market intelligence in. So we're seeing a lot of power in AI to get to more precise predictive insights, that are happening at a product class level, not just commodity level. We're able to kind of now pull in and pulse risk signals, et cetera, in context that we've never been able to look at before. And this complements the digital journey with all the enterprise data and information and process workflows. So there's automation opportunities, there's change in the customer experience completely. And there's a lot of opportunities for just simply efficiency gains. It makes everyone a lot smarter. So it's impacting at every level. It's not just a ChatGPT Gen AI experience of look at my new website where it's got something sexy and cool going on.
Or doing your PowerPoint presentation or whatever else. I think it's fascinating, and I think what you say about kind of, we know we've got data, we know we've got AI, we don't just need to throw them together and see what comes out. We need to start at what value can we deliver to our customers, and if we do that, and then we utilize AI. We start with value. We look at insight, and then we look at the data we need for that insight. Then we can deliver real value. And I think that's the way we need to think about it. Thanks for talking to me.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations so much on your wedding. Good to hear that. And we'll talk again soon.
Thank you. Bye bye.